Well, here we go. It's time to talk about Minnesota in the moving forward series. And by the way, before we get to that, at the time of this recording, we are actually just 15 minutes away from the Loons unveiling their new jersey that they're going to be wearing for this upcoming season. And I'm definitely very excited to see what exactly is going to look like. I mean, they've been kind of giving us some teaser of the fact that they've been giving this teaser called the River Float, and that it looks like the new jersey is going to be have a light blue kind of color. Which, if that's the case, I definitely would buy it because that if this is kind of what the jersey is gonna be look like, where there's kind of like a light blue on it, it's definitely much better than the current one that I'm wearing. Even though the current one does have the wings on it, and that's been something Loons fans have been asking for their teams to bring back, which is the wing kit as part of their jersey, which they kind of did it for last season. But I kind of still feel like they should have gone with their old blue kit and probably put like the wings on the blue kit to make it absolutely amazing. But we shall see how that's going to look. And actually, by the time I finish this video, I will finally know what exactly the new jersey is going to be look like. But that being said, let us get back to this moving forward series about Minnesota United, who finished the season with a 9-7-5 record. They finished with 34 points, scored 36 goals while allowing 26 goals with a plus 10 goal differential. For the second year in a row, the Loons finished fourth in the Western Conference, and they got eliminated by the Seattle Sounders in the conference final, which, as I said before, I'm kind of over for that after such a disaster that happened in the conference final. But I will also feel frustrated that that is going to always live up in its history, and that next season, if Minnesota does play against Seattle, and especially if this game is going to be national televised, I can guarantee you that at least 5 times they're going to mention that Western Conference final that happened last time, including one time they're going to show highlights of that game. And for Seattle fans, that's probably a good memory to have, talk about how they were able to win that to get themselves into another MLS Cup. But in a Minnesota standpoint, that just brings back bad flashback of probably the one of the most heartbreaking, if not the most heartbreaking moment in this team short history. And that, yeah, I feel like if that of course does happen, I'll probably kind of turn off the TV for a bit before returning it, because I don't kind of want to remember that painful night that event actually happened. But moving on, talk about the MVP of this team. It's got to be Reynoso and Molino. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Reynoso and Molino is the MVP of this team, because they are really the reason why this team was able to reach to the conference final. I mean, the partnership between both of these guys, with Reynoso being the number 10 that we all thought he was, and then some, and then Molino, who for the first time not only was able to stay healthy throughout the entire season, well, for majority of the season, but actually finally showed the potential that we thought Kevin Molino can definitely be for this Loons team. And it's no surprise that both of these guys points up in such a good partnership, and really was the attack and the attacking heartbeat of this team throughout the latter part of the season and even into the playoffs. Now, for the disappointment, I'm going to go with Luis Amarilla, and it's kind of harsh to say Luis Amarilla is a disappointment, because he spent more time on the IR this season than he was actually on the pitch. And he's no longer a Loons player, and I usually don't like to put disappointment in terms of player that is no longer with a team. But in the case of Luis Amarilla, I mean, I just feel like this is just a classic case of what if and what could have been such a great player for Minnesota, but just never be, because of the injuries that he's been suffering. Those injuries that really kind of turned his fortune, and really kind of just made him pretty much a player that most likely was not going to come back to Minnesota. All started in that MLS's back tournament, where he suffered that I believe that knee injury right before the first match in the MLS's back tournament that Minnesota was going to take on Sporting KC. And even though he did kind of came back to this team in the third group stage game, he kind of never looked the same. And you kind of also feel like he was definitely playing with an injury, and that he kind of also realized that, yeah, there's just no way that I was kind of fit enough to continue to play with the knock that he has, and therefore, of course, he undergoes surgery and basically was out of the season. Now, that being said, I also kind of feel like, I know this offseason the club decided to kind of cut ties with Luis Almeria, but I can understand why there's some Loons fans wish that the club did not do that and wish that they could have given him a second chance to see how he's going to be coming back from an injury, because there's no doubt that he is definitely a decent player, and he showed that in the first two games where he definitely is a guy that could maybe even get 25 goals, as he promised when he came to this team in the beginning of the seasons. And knowing the fact that, it will be very interesting to see how him partnering with Reynoso and what both of these guys can do, and maybe kind of replicate to what Molino and Reynoso did in the postseason to this upcoming season, where Almeria and Reynoso is going to partner with each other on the attack. That could definitely be a good thing to have, but instead the club decided to kind of cut ties with him, and as I will mention a little bit later, yeah, we definitely need a number 10 heading into this upcoming season. Now, in terms of the top goal scorer, unsurprisingly, it's Kevin Molino with 9 goals, followed by Robin Lod with 7 goals. Ethan Finley finished third with 4 goals, followed by Luis Almeria and Aiko Parr. And I believe Almeria actually scored 3 goals, even though on the team website, when I look at the stats, they said that he only scored 2 goals, because I think I remember when there was a goal that he scored against the Quakes in the MLS's back tournament. Oh, you know why I think they probably wouldn't have counted? Because I remember when we get to the knockout stage of the MLS's back tournament, those stats does not include in the regular season, and hence that's why I think they list him scoring 2 goals throughout the season, because, those are the 2 goals that he scored was all the way back in the first 2 games of the season. Then you got Aiko Parr, who also scored 2 goals. Both of them came in that game against the Quakes, and it's just such a shame that Aiko Parr, after that game, throughout the season, it's been kind of a mystery of what in the world happened to Aiko Parr and what kind of injury that he kind of suffered. I mean, there was speculation that it might have been a head injury that he had suffered, and that there was some rumor that he might, of course, come back to this team sooner or later. But that timeline kind of continued to push throughout the season, and it just gets to a point where, it doesn't feel like he's going to come back to this team. And his future with the Loons is also up in the air, and really his career in general is up in the air, because, if that head injury is definitely serious enough, that potentially could be an injury that could be a career-ending injury for him. And it's such a shame that if that, of course, is going to be the case, because Aiko Parr has had an incredible career, and that if he does decide to retire, I'm definitely going to do a career video talking about the career of Aiko Parr, and a career that unfortunately was cut short because of a head injury, and that you never like to see guys that have a promising career, but unfortunately they got cut short because of a head or a concussion injury. Now, top assist leader, you got Emmanuel Reynoso, unsurprisingly, with 7 assists, and that does not include the playoffs. If you included the playoffs, he would have had 13 assists with this team, and that if he was able to kind of provide, or maybe even do half of what he did in the playoffs, and you add that kind of stats into the regular season, boy, oh boy, this could be a player that could be on verge next season to not only get 10 plus assists or double-digit assists, but could actually break the record for the most assists in the league if he can continue to drop the dimes that he have done throughout last season, and continue to just not only worth every single penny that Minnesota have paid to Boca Junior to get him, but probably is one of, if not the best signings that we have seen recently in MLS that actually work out perfectly, despite the fact that it was a bit of a hefty fee. Then you got Jan Gregush with 6 assists, followed by Robin Lod with 5 assists. Then rounding up, we got Kevin Molino and Roman Metina, both with 4 assists to round off the top assist leader chart. So what went right for the Loons this season? Well, as I mentioned, the revelation of the Reynoso and Molino dynamic duo, and how both of these guys not only was in form in the playoffs, but they were putting some record record-breaking number, especially in Reynoso part, getting six assists throughout that postseason, which was the most assists that anybody in MLS history to ever get in the MLS playoffs. The defense, they did not collapse after Iko Parr suffered what turns out to be a season-ending undisclosed injury, and I know a lot of people, and in some way myself included, where when I saw Iko Parr suffer what turns out to be a season-ending undisclosed injury, I thought the Loons were screwed in terms of their back line, because Iko Parr, not only he was the defender of the year last season, but he was really the heart and soul of that back line and was just kind of the leader of that back line. And the fact that he was no longer available in this team, I thought this was going to be like that back line that give up 70 plus goal in their first two season into the league, and it turns out that of course was not the case, and a lot of that has to do with some of the players that was kind of filled in that Iko Parr slot was actually doing much better than I expected to do. One of our signing that from last offseason, that is Jose Aja, to kind of add depth in terms of that defensive line, and that he also kind of start some of the games this season. He definitely played much better than what I anticipated he was going to be, and definitely played much better with Minnesota compared to when he was with the Whitecaps. And even Brent Coleman, another guy that was a depth piece for us, kind of had to step into this team, and there's been times where he definitely played much better than what I saw of him a couple of years ago when he was part of what this was just an absolute disaster of a back line. But I think the most impressive player out of this back line that I'm not sure, should I say I'm kind of surprised by this, because he also had a great year last season, but is a guy that I did not expect was the guy that kind of took the Iko Parr road this season for the Loons back line, and that of course is Michael Boxall. I mean, I remember for the first two seasons when Boxall was in this back line, I was actually even calling for him to get to basically not only no longer being on this back line, but we should think about potentially selling him, because he was just so bad with this team and was just making a lot of these defensive mistakes. And last season he definitely had his breakout year, but I thought that a lot to do with Iko Parr and how his partnership along with Boxall was kind of the reason why maybe that's why he had a kind of breakout out year. But what this season has proved is that last season it wasn't just because of Iko Parr kind of make Michael Boxall much better last season that is the reason why Boxall had a breakout year. It was because he was actually great all this time, and he really have stepped into that Iko Parr role, kind of become the captain and the leader of this back line. And I was kind of surprised that of course is the case, but overall, I really hope Iko Parr is going to be able to be back with this team. But at least now I kind of know that even if we're not going to have Iko Parr next season, it seemed like this defense is going to be stable enough where they're able to be just as good as they were last season, and that is probably going to be the strong point of this season for Minnesota in the upcoming year. And then finally, the last thing went right with this team is Lady Luck was definitely on the Loons side. I mean, I've talked about it many times during this season, how the Loons really rode their luck throughout the season, and some of their wins and some of those games where they were able to scrap out a draw. Like, I understand that if you're a team in MLS and you want to be successful and you want to maybe go deep into the playoffs, sometimes you do have to ride your luck a little bit. And there's also that good old saying, it's better be lucky than it is good, and in some case that was kind of the case for Minnesota doing last season. But at the same time, I was also worrying the fact that this team was relying so much on those lucky aspect of either the opposition was able to score an own goal for us to get the winner, or the fact that there was a VAR decision that kind of gone in favor of us, and then of course scoring some last minute goal. I thought it wasn't going to be sustainable. Well, it turns out not only it was kind of sustainable, even during that 8-game unbeaten streak to finish out the season. But in some way, it kind of made the team better with some of the luck that they had to continue that unbeaten run. And I guess maybe a lot of that has to do with, since they were on that such an long unbeaten run to end the season, the confidence levels of that team was definitely at an all-time high. And that, sometimes, when you're on an unbeaten streak, that maybe sometimes you do have to rely on some of the some luck to go on your side. If you can continue that unbeaten run, you're going to continue to have a lot of confidence compared to if things are going to go against you and that you just have no luck whatsoever, and you go on a very miserable losing run that will really kill a lot of the confidence from the players of a team. So yeah, Lady Luck, I feel like was on the Loons side, but at the same time, it also kind of helped them in terms of becoming a better team and really start to carry that good form that they had in the latter part of the season into the playoffs, and maybe it was one of the reasons why they were able to go deep into the playoffs. So what went wrong with this team? The goal scoring was a problem at times this season. Don't let this mark distract you the fact that even though the Loons scored 36 goals, which in theory, if you want to look at the goals per game average, it's actually higher than last season. But the reason why I still point out the goal scoring issue for the Loons is that it was definitely an issue during this season, and especially during that losing run and that horror stretch that we had coming back from the MLS's back tournament and in phase 1 of the schedule, where the Loons went like on a 4-game losing run and the team just could not score whatsoever, and also the defense was really looking like a team that was going to give up 70 plus goals. But the good news is the goal scoring did kind of picked up in the latter part of the season, and a lot of that has to do with Reynoso and Molino develop a good dynamic duo together, and really a dynamic threat on this attack near the latter part of the season. There were a lot of injuries throughout this season, and I don't know, should I maybe put this as a what went wrong, because in some way, even though the injury crisis that Minnesota has been doing throughout the season, at least it didn't really kill them, and in most part, there always is a player that is able to step up to take over a players that unfortunately got himself onto the IR list, which can also so pretty much points out how deep this team was last season, and probably even deeper than what I actually thought this team was in terms of the depth that they have, especially in the midfield and also on the defensive end. But obviously, the last thing that went wrong with this team is the collapse in the semifinal. And as I said, as much as I am over with that conference final game, it will always still forever sting if next season in a national televised game they're going to show highlights of that game, and that will always go down in the history books as a game where the Loons were just 1 minute away from reaching MLS Cup, but unfortunately they suffered a late collapse and gave up 2 goals in stoppage time, and therefore they missed a great opportunity to make it to MLS Cup only in their 5th year of existence. Now, moving forward for this team, need a number 9. I mean, I said it before in this moving forward series, and I'm going to say it again, and I decided to even put all caps on this because, seriously, that is our biggest need that we need this offseason, and the fact that we're now just 1 week away from preseason and that needs still have not been addressed, yeah, I am definitely a little bit concerned right now. Now, that being said, the Loons have been rumored with a couple of number 9s. Most recently, we have just rumor with a number 9 coming out of Brazil. That is Rafael Santobora. But at the same time, that was also a player that I mentioned. Other MLS club was also interested in. One of the New York club and Toronto FC was also interested in. And even another club in Brazil that is Palmeiras is interested to trying to sign him this off season. So yeah, if we are going to maybe win the sweepstake of Rafael Santos, most likely we're going to have to splash out a lot of money and probably even pay more than what we did with Emmanuel Reynoso during the middle part of last season. The second thing that moving forward for the team is they definitely need more attacking reinforcement. I mean, it's not just the number 9 position that the Loons desperately need is the only issue that they need to address. But, when I look at this attack, I mean, besides guys like Robin Lod and Ethan Finley and Reynoso to be the main core of this team, that's pretty much it in terms of what I believe could actually be the main threat of our attack. And when you only have 3 guys on your attack that is your main threat of the team, that is definitely a bit concerning, and especially losing Kevin Lee. I mean, I haven't talked about how big of a loss that has been for this team heading into this season in this moving forward series. But yeah, that is going to be a really big loss, and that hopefully during this off season, not only we need to potentially find a DP level number 9, but maybe even potentially find a replacement for Kevin Molino, which is not going to be easy. Consider if we are going to spend DP money on a number 9, we're going to have to try to find a way to sign a winger that is just going to be a high TAM kind of player, because we only have one DP spot open on this team. The last thing moving forward for Minnesota, and this is actually something that I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been brought up. I mean, throughout this offseason, a lot of people have been talking about, well, what's going to happen on the attack? Is there going to be some reinforcement that's going to happen on this attacking end, besides some of the reinforcement we did with our defense and midfield? But I'm surprised not a lot of people have talked about the goalkeeping situation. And that, last year when Dane Sinclair was able to step in relief of Tyler Miller, who unfortunately suffered that torn ACL, he was definitely looked like a starting caliber of an MLS goalkeeper. And now heading into this season, with Tyler Miller, most likely is going to be coming back from that torn ACL injury. Does this mean that he's going to be back behind the stick and be the number 1 goalkeeper, or is it actually going to be Dane Sinclair, the one that's going to remain in that spot? Like, for me, I feel like Dane Sinclair should remain as the number 1, and that the performance that he had for last season really kind of earned himself in terms of the number 1 spot. So if you, of course, decide to put Dane Sinclair as the starting goalkeeper, well, what's going to happen with Tyler Miller, besides the fact that he's a backup goalkeeper, and that is he going to be happy with being in the backup position? I mean, remember one of the reasons why Tyler Miller decided to leave Seattle and decided to go to LAFC is because he wants to get some starting minutes after he's been stuck as the backup of Stephen Fry for all those years. And he finally got those starting minutes and started to look like a decent starting quality of an MLS goalkeeper. Then, of course, he was traded to Minnesota, where in the beginning of the season he was definitely the number 1 on this team to replace Vita Manone. But as I mentioned, because of that season-ending injury that he suffered, Dane Sinclair so they took his spot and really kind of took the spotlight away from him. And that, if you're Tyler Miller, are you going to be satisfied? The fact that you're going to be once again be a backup of a team that might be a team that could potentially chase for some trophy next season, or even be an MLS Cup contender, but you kind of feel like you want to go somewhere to continue to have some starting minutes in this league. So yeah, that is definitely an interesting situation that Minnesota might have to deal with, but at the same time, it's a good problem to have, because you rather have a goalkeeping issue where you have 2 goalkeeper that is starting quality of a goalkeeper in MLS, but you don't know which one you should start, compared to if you have 2 bad goalkeeper that is nowhere near MLS quality and are kind of mediocre goalkeeper, and who in the world are you going to choose out of those 2 players? And if Minnesota are eventually going to be moving on from Tyler Miller, I expect they are going to get a good sum of general allocation money wherever he's going to go to another MLS team, or even go to another league, because again, I really think Tyler Miller is a starting caliber of a goalkeeper in this league, and I won't be surprised that there's going to be teams, and we know that there's a lot of teams in this league that definitely needs a good goalkeeper, but for a cheap amount of price, I won't be surprised if Dane Sinclair is going to be remain in that spot, that maybe heading into in the middle of next season, once the secondary transfer window open, or even maybe heading into the next offseason, that Tyler Miller could potentially end up in the trading block and maybe moving on to another team. But that being said, that is pretty much it for this moving forward series about Minnesota. And again, usually whenever I talk about one of my team, I usually go a little bit more in depth compared to other team. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and what do you think Minnesota went right this season, what went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? I mean, for me, I feel like this team might be good enough to make it to the playoffs once again, but my big concern is, of course, on the attacking end, and that if we do not find a DP level of number 9, or even some reinforcement to potentially replace Molino and add more attacking reinforcement to our team, I don't think this team is going to get themselves back to the conference final, and that last season might be kind of the peak that we see with this team, if this team decided to not add some attacking reinforcement. I mean, I know the old saying said defense always wins championship, but you also need to have guys that can score goals and able to put up numbers on the scoreboard if you want to, of course, go far in this league, and that you just cannot just always rely on your goalkeeper and on your defense as a way to trying to potentially to be a competitive team heading into this upcoming season in MLS. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.